Welcome back to Rats. Okay, so this is something very different for me. I said a while ago that I was going to do a series called Rock, Paper, Scissors, Doomstack, which is going to be a tactical breakdown, I guess, of individual elements. So everything I'm going to talk about is going to be from a legendary difficulty point of view because I only play on legendary difficulty with very large units because that's how I play, and that should scale down effectively to any other difficulty, realistically speaking. But I just wanted to talk about autoresolve and how it's all changed. Now, there's several different areas to cover with autoresolve, and feel it is an area where new players kind of get lost in the moment and get carried away with it. So we're going to talk about when you should and when you shouldn't auto resolve and the benefits to auto resolving versus not auto resolving. So there's a couple of stages to this, and I can actually show you what I actually mean with the start of Exeotls campaign. If you haven't got the new DLC, this is the new Lizardman character. I'll just enable it now. Oh, wrong button. There we go. So this is the start of Exeotls Lizardman campaign. Here's Exeotl with his somewhat reasonable stack. It's very ranged focused, as he is a ranged character, and you've got a really beefy hero here. And usually you have a stack nearby that you've got to fight and kill. So let's just have a look. So if you have a look with him on his own, I'm not going to look at the banners because that's not really part of it. Auto resolve changed. It's no longer the bar. So people used to call the bar like balance of power, which it never really was. It was like more like a strength bar, so that you had casualty ometer as such. So like that is why when you play versus campaigns, it would show differently for each player because it's not really showing you the odds of winning so much as the percentage of troops you're roughly going to have left at the end of it. So it was very different, but now it's been completely replaced. You have a battle result status, so we got Valiant defeat here, and casualty status high. So you've got like low, medium, high, and low can be like 0 to 2 men, which is ridiculous, but high can be like your entire army. I don't understand quite why it says high when it can literally be your entire force. It seems a bit ridiculous. Now, for the Lizardmen, this is actually a pretty straightforward fight. There's only really the Mammoth that would actually show you any kind of serious problems here. Everyone else is relatively short range, so you've got the tactical advantage of using range units to destroy everything. But I'm just going to abandon the battle and get the hero in here. And you'll see that the balance of power will dramatically change. So now, it's a perfect victory, meaning we'll just win, and the casualties will be medium. So the casualties are distributed through your units. If we had more units, the casualties would be distributed across more units, and the casualty status would probably be a lot lower. But if we go to auto still, it still says we'd lose 2 units. Now, I almost guarantee this, that if you fight this, you would not lose anything, because when a unit gets so low that it is facing annihilation, it usually flees the field. The only way that these Saurus warriors would actually die is if these wolves are still alive. And since they are very fast and very weak, they would probably come in first and you'd shoot them or just kill them and they would break first anyway. So that's not really an issue. So that kind of covers what would happen in these kind of instances. So another aspect of this is it might seem like a good idea to do this, and I don't really rate Saurus warriors all that great in comparison to some of the other things. Like the Skinks have a lot of tactical benefit and they're cheap, so you can afford a lot of them early on, which is always great. But the main bonus to actually auto resolving this is if you did this, you would only have to fight this army once. You don't have to fight it twice. So it would be insta victory. So I'll just press it to demonstrate what I mean. Like, we took the casualties, and his army is completely gone. But there's a plus and a downside to that. That means we can't fight the army again. And if you look at the experience, if we fight the army twice, we'll most likely level. So it's kind of hero farming. You can always fight a lord twice before their army dies. And that is generally a good way to do it. Plus, then you wouldn't have lost these two units because they would run away. Autoresolve, for whatever reason, automatically decides it's going to be a pitch fight to the death and no one will ever run away, even though that is quite often the case with what happens. Another reason I am extremely against autoresolve is for new players. If you're building an army that you've never used before, you need to learn to use those units, because you can build an army on paper which looks good, but if it doesn't fit your playstyle or your tactical ability to use at this time, then you might screw up using it. So even if you have a superior force to fight against an enemy, like say he's only got 6 units and you've got 18, it's still worth trying things out with units if they're new units that you haven't used before, or it's a different tactic, or it's new DLC. Like, I'd always recommend you actually fighting battles, especially for like the first 50 turns, because when you're first getting established, your army is so critical. Like, this doesn't seem too bad because I can replace these Saurus. I mean, let's just have a look. Let's just assume I was actually going to play it this year. So I don't care about ammunition. Experience I probably care about more than anything else. So let's do for experience. He's dead. Can just stay under 50%. So I can encamp in my territory. And I can recruit more units. And I'd probably go for a good mix. So I'd want 2 of these and 1 of them. But it's going to take 3 turns of camping, which means I'm not progressing anywhere, to actually get these units to recover. Like, if you fight a battle and you have damaged units, you can put them to the back of the battlefield and hide them and keep them out of a fight. Or you can start a battle and you can withdraw them from the battle so that they don't die. There is no need not to keep fighting and pushing. Like, if we'd have fought this manually, we could take that probably next turn quite easily. I haven't actually done this campaign yet, so I'm just going to look around. Yeah, so that is one of the biggest downfalls, is the sheer amount of damage you take. Like, 3 turns is... It's 3 for everyone, isn't it? It's 2 for them. 2 for the hero. Yeah, so it's going to hold you back quite significantly. So you always have to consider the situation properly and make sure you're not overextending yourself. Because this is the thing, if this is easy and you do it again and again and again, well, it's 3 turns now. If I'd have done it twice, could be 5, 6 turns before we can even like go anywhere and do anything, and that is time wasted. 6 turns without fighting is a massive drain on your army's capacity to pay for itself. Like, we're in the plus money-wise, but we actually need to make sure that we keep getting money and taking advantage of the fact that I'm pretty sure... Is that his only army? Yeah, the strength rank of 69 versus 103. He probably only has a really small force, if anything, left now. So that is a quick breakdown of why you should do things a certain way. It benefits certain races differently. Like, fighting lords twice in battles, twice for Skaven, means you get even more food. You can get up to 20 food a battle. And if you're fighting, say, orcs and goblins that have the numbers, or beastmen that have the numbers, if you can beat them twice and get 30 food, say, from a battle, then that's way better than fighting 1 battle once with auto-resolve and then just quitting out of it. Now, that is the pro... you should fight your battle side of things. The other side of things is, when you're a veteran player and you know what you're doing, you should probably auto-resolve battles, but not in the early game still. Because, like I said, you want your armies to be active and doing things and paying for themselves. Even if you're not fighting battles, you can be raiding areas. But when you get into the late game, or you're fighting, for example, Tomb Kings, someone with an endless stack of armies, or when it's like the Chaos Spawn, you want to actually finish off armies. So if there's a lot of armies clumped together, you'll want to make sure that they don't flee and get away. And the best way to do that sometimes is auto-resolve, because if you know there are other armies in the area hiding off in the distance, you can make sure that they die before someone else comes in to help. Or if you fight it the once and they flee behind that other army and you don't have lightning strike, or you can't reach, or you can't move there because you're blocked by that other army, sometimes it's impossible to reach the original army and finish them off. Like, it's very situational based on the map. I give you that. But basically, it's all about learning what troops you've got, learning how to use them early on, and making the most of what you've got to level up hero. Because ultimately, expanding the amount of territory you've got is great, and you should definitely do it as much as you can. But if you expand too fast, then you don't have the money to upgrade your territories, you don't have a strong enough force to defend your territories. And really, all that matters early on is leveling up your Legendary Lord, because even if he does die, he's immortal and he'll come back. So with all that said and done, I think I've covered everything. Oh, there is one other instance of actually fighting battles, and this is the flip side. Rather than it being easy when it's really hard, sometimes people just auto-resolve battles to get it over with. Say you're being attacked by several AI factions and you just want to grind through it all, get back to your turn and do something. It's very tempting sometimes to just press auto and let the AI take everything. But say, for example, they're attacking walled cities and they only have one siege attacker unit, it's often best to try and snipe those essential units so that they can't just take that city and then move on to the next city and take that one. Because if you auto-resolve it, that damage, like the damage you took in this one, distributed across the entire army, it'll be done like that. So you'll not killed anything. You'll have taken like 33% off all his army at best, probably, if it's really stacked against you. And that really isn't going to win you any battles. But if you manually fight it, you can target specific units and pick them off so that they're no longer a threat to you. So any high priority targets are worth the effort and time, even if it's extremely imbalanced. If you have a low tier garrison but you still have like 15 units, you can probably use 5 or 6 of them to keep half his army busy and focus all your range units and a couple of combat units on trying to kill the high asset targets and make sure that, you know, you can't just move straight on to the next territory and keep pushing it and pushing it. You have to grind them down through attrition. It's very Sun Tzu's The Art of War, which I'm a massive fan of, which is a book, by the way. But yeah, so this has been a different video and more of a talk than actual here's me doing something. So if you have any feedback, comments, or suggestions, or if you like the idea of this and you want more noob videos based on other topics, feel free to suggest them in the comments. And if you would subscribe since you've listened this far, that would be amazing. And I will catch you in the next one. I will be doing a breakdown of each individual feature for the new DLC and things. I was just waiting until we got the actual finished released version, because sometimes we get the beta access and they rapidly change things between release, but it looks like we kind of got the finished version. So I'm going to do a breakdown on the Dwarf Empire and my thoughts on the short campaign, and then I'll break down some other stuff and we'll just take it as it comes. So yeah, that's the end of this one. I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much for listening.